Innovation, growth, lowering taxes, smaller government, cutting federal spending. That's what leads to recovery. History shows it to us over and over again. But here's the secret. Progressives. In 1920, after Woodrow Wilson, and I'm going to do a whole hour of shows on Woodrow Wilson. I hate that guy. These people, these progressive history professors are defending this guy. When I introduce you to Woodrow Wilson, you'll hate him as much as I do. 1920, after Woodrow Wilson, the progressives were discredited. They cut spending, cut taxes. What happened? The Roaring Twenties. The Depression was over in 1946 after the war. But they were thinking it was going to go into another depression. Why? Why? Because, well, the government just can't choke off and stop spending. But in 1946, they had had enough campaign. And they avoided all of the troubles because they cut spending and cut taxes. Now, here's where it gets dicey. In 1980, they did half of the solution. They had tax cuts. Well, that's only half. Why? Because Congress, the progressives, were in control. We didn't cut our spending as well. In 2001, the tax cuts, that was drinking poison. We had the tax cuts, but we didn't stop spending. And then on top of it, you want to talk about hemlock. Easy lending. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Put us into this position. You must do both of these things. Cut spending and cut taxes. Innovation. You think of things. Lower taxes, smaller government. Cut the federal spending. FDR's policies of the 1930s have demonstrated quite clearly government cannot rescue the free market. That's up to you. But instead of inspiring people, this administration is demoralizing them. At a fundraiser, Joe Biden recently told people, and I quote, "There is no possibility to restore 8 million jobs lost in the Great Recession." Well, not with that thinking. That's why cutting taxes, cutting the bureaucracy, stopping the control of special interests will lead to prosperity. It's going to be an ugly road, gang. But the American people will create things that other people want and need, whether it's in Indiana or India. It doesn't matter. We can figure it out. The American entrepreneur is the best in the world. And gang, that's all we got left, is our brains, our smarts, our ingenuity. Government does not have any of that. It doesn't even understand the free market. They produce nothing. The government produces nothing but misery and dependence. And it's been this way since the beginning of time. As Reagan said, government is not the answer. Government is the problem. Harding and Coolidge understood this, as did the Congress in 1920 and 1946. They got out of the way and let Americans ask Americans, what do you want? The answer was innovation. In the 1920s, it was the telephone, the radio, the automobile, the air conditioner. These were not in the average everyday home until American got the government to get out of the way. That's the kind of leadership that we need. The biggest economic weapon America has is its people. And quite honestly, it's the only weapon we have left. This administration apparently doesn't think you're unique or that this is somehow or another any kind of special country. Well, I do. I have to believe that. Because if we're not a special country, if we are not unique, then gang, we might as well be Mexico. We're not going to get out of this mess unless we stand up and be who we truly are. We must be the dreamers, the entrepreneurs, the doers, the innovators. They're the people that made this country what it is. I almost said today, but no, it's the government that made this country what it is today. If we continue to rely on progressives like Pete Stark, how the hell did this guy get elected? I'm sorry, I know the answer to that, gerrymandering. You don't have to have a doctorate to answer what happens to this country if progressives continually run it into the ground. Back in a minute. Funeral was held late last week, but with the holiday weekend, this is the first chance that we've had a chance to talk about the way Byrd was eulogized by the leaders of the Democratic Party. It was shameful. Let me acknowledge a couple of things here first. Everyone make mistakes. We make errors. Everyone can change, and we all must forgive, but we don't necessarily forget if we can learn from those mistakes. Let me tell you something. It's the reason why I tell you that, I'm a recovering alcoholic. 1995, man, I hit bottom. It's taken me from 1995 until today to try to, I'm a recovering, not only alcoholic, but a recovering dirtbag. I could use a second chance. I needed a second chance. I needed the atonement just as much as anybody else. I believe that people can change. We have to believe that, or we can't go on. But what former President Bill Clinton said about Robert Byrd, I think, is despicable. Watch.
He once had a fleeting association with the Ku Klux Klan, and what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. He was a country boy from the hills and hollows of West Virginia. He was trying to get elected. And maybe he did something he shouldn't have done, and he spent the rest of his life making it up.
Holy cow. First of all, he had a fleeting association with the Ku Klux Klan? Fleeting? He recruited 150 members into a group. He was unanimously elected to a position called the Exalted Cyclops. Stories vary on the length of his actual involvement with the Klan, but this much we do know. In 1945, Byrd wrote to a segregationalist, a senator, Theodore Bilbo, about integration in the military service. Here's what he said, and I quote, "I shall never submit to fight beneath the banner with a Negro by my side. Rather, I should die 1,000 times and see Old Glory trampled in the dirt. Never to rise again than to see this beloved land of ours become degraded by race mongrels." That's not a fleeting association. That's deep-seated. The following year, Byrd wrote a letter to the Grand Wizard of the KKK stating, "The Klan is needed today as never before, and I am anxious to see its rebirth here in West Virginia." Now, Bill Clinton stands up and says, well, he was just doing that to getting elected. Well, Bill, let me ask you a question. Does that make it any better? And let me ask you another question. Are you saying that it's fine for people who burn crosses and are making nooses, it's okay to burn the crosses and nooses as long as you're doing it for political gain? Okay, I'm not sure what this says about Robert Byrd, but I think a few things are being cleared up in my mind about Bill Clinton. You're doing it for political gain, so that's okay. I have to say, persecuting an entire race for people, just for their votes, or because you hate them, I'm not sure which one's worse or if any one of them is better. President Obama also seemed dismissive of Byrd's Klan days. Here's what he said.
And as I reflect on the full sweep of his 92 years, it seems to me that his life bent towards justice. Like the Constitution he tucked in his pocket, like our nation itself, Robert Byrd possessed that quintessential American quality, and that is a capacity to change.
How did he choke those? I mean, he couldn't sit down. He barely could sit down with a cop and have a beer with the guy. How did he do that one? There were things that he did in his youth that he came to regret. Well, sure, when he wrote the letter to the Grand Wizard, he was only 29 or 30 years old. You can't expect a youth of 30 to know right from wrong yet. He was barely out of diapers. And when he filibustered and voted against the Civil Rights Act of 1964, he was only 47. I mean, what does a 50-year-old know? Nothing. He was barely out of his teens. You certainly couldn't expect the maturity level, of a right-thinking adult at a mere 47 years old. It's a well-worn phrase. But can you imagine if this had been a Republican? Anyone who had positively eulogized the life of a former Klan member would have been barbecued in the press and drummed out of the office politically. We all know too well the story of Trent Lott, who toasted his friend Strom Thurmond at his 100th birthday party. Thurmond was, by all accounts, a racist early on. Forgive, never forget. But Strom was never a Klan member. Also, like Byrd, he regretted his early association with racism. But when Lott said, when Strom Thurmond ran for president, we voted for him, we're proud of it, and the rest of the country would have followed our lead, we wouldn't have had all these problems over the years either. Well, when he said that, all hell broke loose. He was forced to step down as Senate Majority Leader. I want to show you two headlines. This is from the New York Times. This is when Strom Thurmond died. Strom Thurmond, foe of integration, dies at 100. That's the headline. New York Times. The guy who filibustered the civil rights movement. Headlines, New York Times. Ready? Robert C. Byrd, a pillar of the Senate, dies at 92. Both headlines were written by the same person.